So the Republicans, John Thune, for example, the senator from South Dakota, has said that if taxes go up on millionaires, keep in mind the Democrats are proposing to extend about $1,000 a year per person for the average working person tax cut by reducing the payroll tax, to extend this for another year. And to pay for this, because they try, unlike George W. Bush with his wars and Medicare Part D and all this other stuff, this administration actually pays for things. To pay for this, they want to tax anybody on their income with an extra 3% roughly income tax after their first $1 million. So on their $1,001st per year. And John Thune said, if you do that, they're going to stop hiring people. So Tamara Keith with Morning Edition on NPR notes that for the second week in a row, Senate on Thursday voted down proposals to extend the, blah. And she quotes John Thune. She says, so we went to the business groups who've been lobbying against the surtax. 3 days after putting in the request, none of them was able to find someone for us to talk to. So we put a query on Facebook. Several business owners who said they would be affected by the Millionaires Surtax responded. Ian Yankwit, who owns Tortoise Investment Management, said, it's not one of the top 20 things we think about when we're making a business hire. He says his ultimate marginal tax rate wouldn't even make it on the agenda. Jason Berger, a multimillionaire, co-owner of CSS International Holdings, a global infrastructure contractor, makes more than $1 million a year. He said, if my taxes go up, I have slightly less disposable income. Yes. I only think it's fair that I put back into the system that is the entire reason for my success. He says his Michigan-based company is hiring like crazy, and he'd be perfectly willing to pay this surtax. So why would anybody oppose it? Mark Finkelstein is on the line with us. He's with newsbusters.org, the conservative website. And Mark, I don't get it. Why do you think that when Bill Clinton raised taxes 3%, and Newt Gingrich stood on the floor of the House of Representatives, not a single Republican voted for it, and Newt Gingrich prophesied that it would produce a Great Depression within the year, and instead it produced 20 million new jobs and an explosion in economic activity. When we had 4 decades of 3.2% or higher growth, the only time in the history of the United States when decade to decade GDP growth has been more than 3.2%, when the top tax rate on millionaires and billionaires was above 74%, as soon as it dropped, it went below 3.2%. How can you do anything other than look at the math and say, gee, we ought to roll back the Reagan tax cuts?
Tom, I often hear you saying that you and other progressives love science and love the scientific method, but you're sounding like the rooster who's trying to take credit for the sunrise because he's crowed. In other words, it's not a controlled experiment to say that during a given time we had growth and taxes were higher. That doesn't prove that higher taxes produce growth. I would say to the contrary, we'd have to see how much higher the growth would have been if taxes had been kept lower. And I just find it amusing that, you're saying that President Obama and Democrats want to, pay for things. I truly do not believe that these are suddenly, born-again deficit hawks. These are folks who simply want to get hold of more money out of the private sector.
Mark, first of all, you are
That's what it's really about.
Mark, you are mischaracterizing what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting that higher taxes produce growth, although I am willing to make that argument. What I explicitly just said was that during times of high taxes, we had growth. I don't think that there's an absolute connection between the two, other than that if you have tax rates on people who earn over $1 million below 50%, then what you tend to see is bubble economies emerge, not just in the United States, but all over the world. And there are dozens of examples of this, and this is very well documented in the literature of economics. And that when you have tax rates above 50% after the first $1 million, that you tend not to see bubble economies because you don't have so much hot money. You don't have cheap money where people are looking for fast returns, high risk returns, flowing around in the economy. And you certainly have seen that in the United States. You had a 91% tax rate in 1920. Harding came into office in 1921 and dropped it down to 25%. And over the next 9 years, you had an explosive bubble economy from 1921 to 1929. That bubble popped in 29, and it took us a decade to get out of that. Again, and similarly...
Okay, Tom, if you want to let me get in a word edgewise
Sure.
here, I mean, if you want to talk about bubble economies, the one that has caused the present crisis is the one that was created by direct government intervention through the Fannie Mae's and the Freddie Mac's and the various government intrusion into the markets. That
The entire
all of these wait a sec, let me just finish.
Mark, you're wrong. Your numbers are wrong, though.
Trillions of dollars into the real estate market, inflated prices irrationally, lent money to people who couldn't handle it, and inevitably.
Mark, what was the size of the total subprime market?
Say again?
How many dollars? What was the size of the total subprime market in the United States that you're saying was responsible for the crash? How big was it?
Hundreds of billions.
I'll tell you, it was $1.7 trillion.
Okay, there you
It's
go.
$1,700 trillion.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the Fed put $7.7 trillion into the system. Now, what was the size of the gray market in CDOs, CDSs, and other derivatives before 1990 versus 2008 when it crashed? Before 1990, it was zero.
I don't have the figure on the tip of my tongue, but Tom, the point
Before
is,
1998, it was zero because they were illegal. When they crashed in 2008, it was $800 trillion. An $800 trillion crash that is now down to $600 trillion has nothing to do with $1.7 trillion in subprime mortgages. The subprime mortgages are not what crashed the economy.
Tom, this is something we discussed last time, that here's an area that we agree, that government should not be in the business of corporate welfare, that, there is no...
Government should be in the business of regulating banks.
No.
When we stopped regulating them in 1998, all this happened.
No, above all, government should be in the business of telling everybody, from banks to investors to depositors, that if you make foolish or risky or irresponsible loans or investments, you are the one that's going to be on the hook, and big mama government is not going to come along to help you out. And it will be the force of the market, much more than any government regulation, that will result in people making responsible decisions.
Mark, if we were talking about manufacturing widgets, I would agree with you. But what you're talking about, when you're talking about the banking system, is you're talking about the livelihood of millions of Americans. What you're talking about is a result of this deregulation of the banksters and this destruction of the banking system is that people are committing suicide, people are getting divorces, child abuse and spouse abuse is up, mental illness is up, people are dying, people are homeless. This is all the result of the fact that Phil Gramm, in large part, but it was the tail end of the Clinton administration for, to make it bipartisan, but it was largely a Republican effort, deregulated the banks, by doing away with Glass-Steagall, with Graham Leach Bliley. And this, if it wasn't the banking system, I'd agree with you, but this is something that affects people's lives.
I would say it is the end result of big government intervention that began with things like the FDIC. And if again, from
the FDIC was created in 1935. It prevented a disaster.
Exactly. And that is the point, that if people understood from day one that there is no such thing as, the
FDIC only protects people up to $150,000. How could that possibly have anything to do with a $600 trillion black market?
That was the beginning of this whole slippery slope that led to greater and greater government involvement in the markets and ultimately created this huge bubble that burst.
That's nonsense, Mark. We never, before 1935, the United States had literally never gone more than 15 years without a major national banking panic. From 1935 until Phil Gramm got his legislation through in 99, we did not have a single major national banking panic. Not one. 50 years. And then he deregulated it, and boom, within a decade, we were back to the exact same cycles we were in before we had regulated banks.
But again, I'm sure you would agree that it was government intervention that led to the housing bubble and ultimate collapse.
No, it had nothing to do with it. It was the lack of government. It was the lack of government regulation, in my opinion. I get it that your opinion is the other way around. And people can read about it at newsbusters.org. Mark Finkelstein. Mark, thanks for being with us.
Okay, thank you.